I like to dedicate this to all of the Creator's righteous children. I have some food in my bag for you. Not that edible food, the food you eat. No, I have some food for thought. Since knowledge is infinite, it has infinitely fell on me.
Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be on the Netflix series The Get Down. Now, the reason I decided to watch The Get Down because I didn't originally watch it when it first came on Netflix last August. I was pretty busy with a bunch of other things and I didn't really get the chance to sit down and really dive into it. And so this past week, I dived into the first part and the second part of the series and I loved it. Now, this comes from somebody who is a hip-hop head. I love hip-hop. I love hip-hop a lot. I grew up, so I have 4 siblings, right? I'm the last of 5 kids. And my siblings, they, for the most part, were born in the 70s and early 80s. So my siblings got to experience the best of hip-hop. They got to experience hip-hop in the 80s, in the 90s, and even today. And so I learned a lot about hip-hop growing up, and when I was really little, I didn't really understand hip-hop or really know like what hip-hop was or about or anything, but I was little, and so I just wanted to imitate my siblings, what they were doing, what they were listening to, because I was the youngest of 5 and all my siblings were in high school. So for me, it was a big deal when I got to listen to some of their music, whether it was in the car with them or just, you know, whatever. Like when I was really little, my brother, he would go out with his friends and he would like leave his stereo on. And so I would go into his room, sneak in, don't tell anybody, but now you know. I would sneak in and I would go and press play on his stereo. And I didn't really know what was playing. I didn't know what was playing at all. But I would get the best of Snoop when he was Snoop Doggy Dogg. I would get the best of the Beastie Boys. I would get the best of Bone Thugs and Harmony, Tribe Called Quest, you know, Common when he was Common Sense, like so many different artists, right? And I didn't understand any of them at all. And I probably wasn't even supposed to be listening to this music when I was little, but hey. But I really loved the beat and I really loved the rhyme pattern, you know what I mean? And I was just really fascinated by it. And so when I got into high school, I got even more into hip hop and discovered a bunch of music from when I was a kid that I was really into but didn't really understand. And that got me back into like a Tribe Called Quest, which is one of my favorite hip hop groups of all time. It got me into Common Sense. It got me back into Snoop. It got me back into the Beastie Boys, you know, Bone Thugs and Harmony, you know, Lauryn Hill, the Fugees, MC Lyte, Queen Latifah, who else? LL Cool J, Ice Cube, who else? Arrested Development, who else? KRS-One, so many. And even newer ones like Lupe Fiasco I was really big into in high school. And like J. Cole I'm really into, and Kendrick, and you know, Joey Badass I love, and Chance the Rapper, and who else? Just like a various amounts of hip hop, like Missy Elliott, Timbaland, and Pharrell, and like just the best parts of hip hop, and I love it. I love it so much, right? So when I found out that they were making a like TV series on like basically the birth of hip hop, I got excited because as a hip hop fan, right, I personally know a good amount of the history of hip hop, but not fully to the point where I could be like a hip hop historian. I couldn't go that far. And so while watching this series, I was able to learn a lot of the history that I didn't actually know before, that I either knew, but I didn't know all of what would have, you know, went through with it, or I didn't know it all. And so it was great to watch this series and really learn, oh, this is how this happened. Oh, this is why this is. And actually piece things together that I might have known about, but didn't fully understand the whole situation or concept of it. So, basically, The Get Down is a Netflix series that only had one season, sadly, because it got canceled. Shame, shame, Netflix. Shame, shame. But it only had one season because it got canceled, sadly, after this April when it premiered its part 2. And basically, The Get Down is about basically the birth of hip-hop. It doesn't go as far as 1973 when Kool Herc first coined, hip-hop. And not the word hip-hop, but just hip-hop in general. No, it didn't go that far. But it started in 1977 after some prominent DJs had become big in the whole scene, you know what I mean? And back then they called it the Get Down. And so you had people like Grandmaster Flash, Grandmaster Caz, Herc, and Afrika Bambaataa, and like all of these different prominent DJs from back in the day. And so back then, at first it was just, the Get Down, so it was just DJing. And in the show, they actually teach you about what the Get Down is, and there's also a really dope tutorial type video on Hot 97's YouTube channel that you should go check out, that Grandmaster Flash actually did last year when the Get Down first premiered on Netflix. And it's so dope, but it's super technical, so I'm lost a little bit, but it's so dope, hip hop legend, right? So anyways, the story basically revolves around this cat named Ezekiel, or Zeke for short. And basically, he's this really cool cat who and this all takes place in the 70s. So he's this cool cat who's really smart, very poetic, very much on his cool tip, right? But he doesn't want his friends to know about it because he doesn't want to be, considered a punk. Being smart is considered a punk, right? So he's I don't want to go down like that. But his teacher keeps persuading him to care more about his education, care more about and take this stuff seriously, because he actually has a chance of going to college and getting out of the Bronx, because it all takes place in the Bronx. Getting out of the Bronx and doing something that's actually worthwhile for his life. So that happens, and that's one of the storylines. But then you also have his girl, her name is Mylene. And Mylene, his butterscotch queen. They're so cute together. Anyways, so Mylene, she is this church girl whose father is very, very religious. They're Jehovah's Witness, and he's very, very religious. Very religious. He thinks that anything that's not church music is devil music, that everybody's a sinner, that basically if you don't conform to God, then you're going to hell. One of those. And Mylene really wants to be a disco singer. She wants to be one so bad. She just really wants to, that's her goal, that's her life, that she really wants that. And she really wants to get out of the Bronx and make a better life for herself. So she keeps trying to make it a possibility for herself, but her dad just keeps no, you can't do it, it's devil music, don't do it. Disco is devil music, you can't even listen to it, you can't even sing it, don't do it. But she just devises a plan to go to this club called Les Inferno. And basically, while she's there, and basically this ties into the story as well, because it talks about these drug dealers, one of them Fat Annie, who owns Les Inferno, and her son Cadillac. And Cadillac's a huge disco freak. He loves disco. He understands disco the way Ezekiel and the Get Down crew understand hip hop. So basically, she devises a plan to end up going to Les Inferno with a demo tape that her and Ezekiel had mastered this morning. And she goes to this club, and a bunch of stuff happens, and then there's a shootout and all this stuff. Basically, where Zeke and Mylene come together is that Zeke is in love with Mylene. But Mylene does not really want to be with him because she's I have these dreams. I have these disco star dreams and I don't really want to mess them up by being in a relationship with somebody from the Bronx who's not going to go anywhere. And as time progresses, they end up hooking up, and like she starts to fall in love with him, and it's really beautiful. But at first she's like, leave, piss off, like we're not going to be together, so bye. And he's just gets his heart broken. So then, you know, he comes into contact with this guy named Shaolin Fantastic, and he's basically, at first he's a graffiti artist, and he's like this unknown figure who's like a graffiti artist who's like this legendary guy. And then after a while, the first episode, you find out who he is, and you find out he's actually one of Grandmaster Flash's like proteges, and so he's trying to learn how to DJ from Grandmaster Flash. But then you also learn that he is working heavily with Fat Annie and Cadillac, because he used to live on the streets, but then Fat Annie took him in, and now he you know, slings dope. And so basically that's a world that collides throughout this show as well. But Ezekiel and his crew, they learn about Shaolin Fantastic, and then he comes and basically takes them to the Get Down. And they don't know what the Get Down is. They don't understand it. They're like, what is this new cool thing that's like going down in these underground like places, in these parties, right? And they meet Grandmaster and everything, and Ezekiel finds out that he's the wordsmith. So he finds out that there's this DJ, and then the DJ needs a wordsmith to rhyme over the DJ's beats. And so he starts to believe in himself as a wordsmith, and then basically a group is formed called the Get Down Brothers, and featuring, you know, DJ Shaolin Fantastic, and basically the whole story of like how they come to, you know, really hone in on their skills of the Get Down, and everything comes into play throughout the whole series. And yeah, and then you also have Mylene's uncle, who is part crime boss, part like political activist, where he has a really like shady past and is still like in that lifestyle, but really cares about his people and is working with this like racist old white guy who like wants to run for like mayor or something of the Bronx, and basically has no intention of really helping him at all. But his name is Papa Fuerte, and he Ed Koch, who is the guy running, has absolutely no like, he doesn't really want to work with him. He called him a spick. Like, he doesn't even want to work with him. But Papa Fuerte thinks that he's, like, you know, in it for, you know, whatever. And so he's trying to, because Papa Fuerte really wants to get, like, affordable housing for everybody. Because during this whole show, something that is a big, like, plot point of the whole show is that they live in the Bronx in the 1970s, the late 1970s. And during this time is when these housing lenders and like these slumlords, they would like lease these houses and these apartments to these black folks and Latinx, and then once they're in there, they would like set intentional fires so they can like burn all these like black and Latinx and get them out of their communities and get a profit off of it. And so you see like a lot of burning buildings during the whole show, and it's really sad because it's like it takes you back to like all of that happening back in the day, and it really is sad that it's not changed like at all. Like there's still people, like they might not be burning buildings at this point, but they're doing something that's just as bad, which is gentrification. And so it's really sad. But anyways, so Papa Fuerte really wants to get affordable housing for his people, and he's working with Ed Koch, but it doesn't really work out. So yeah, so that's basically the main plots of the show. But the show actually has like 1,000,000,001 plots. Like from episode to episode to episode, you have to really pay attention a lot, because the show just has a lot of like information it's trying to throw at you from one moment to the next. And so you never know like whose episode's gonna be next. Like it always revolves around Ezekiel, and Mylene and Shell and Fantastic and what their storylines are, but it also focuses on, you know, the Get Down brothers, the Kipling brothers, you know, and also Papa Fuerte, and then Mylene's family, and then, you know, her friends, and like all these different things. And so it's a lot that you have to take in to watch the show, but I do recommend it because it's a really good show, especially for those who are like in the newer generation, like millennials, and even some in the 90s who might not even know about some of this stuff. Yeah, I think that we should all watch this, because if you don't know about, you know, Grandmaster Flash or Kaz or African Bombada or Herc or any of this, you really should go back and you should watch it and learn your hip-hop history. Just learn it. Know what happened, how this art form became what it is today, and how it's dominating the actual world, right? So anyways, so basically some of my favorite parts of this show, I really like Jaden Smith's character. His name is Dez, and basically Diz, I think. Basically his character is basically Jaden. If you took Jaden from 2017 or 2016, 2017, and put him back in 1977 and 1978, then you would basically have Diz. You know, like he's basically Jaden. And what I like about his character is that he's very free, and so Diz is a graphic artist. He's a graffiti artist he does comic books, and he also does tagging. And he goes by the tag of Rumi or Remy 411. And so basically he just goes and tags a bunch of these subways, and he has this like crew that he hangs out with, where he goes and tags all these subway cars and stuff. And of course the police are after them because tagging is bad, which whatever, like it's art, so it's art. It's not even doing anything bad, it's just art, but they look at it as like, you know, defilement of stuff and whatever. But I really like his character because he's very free, and I really like, so in this story he ends up finding a love interest, which is this white guy who is also a tagger, and his tagging name is Thor. And so him and Thor are like in this cute, well, they're not really in a relationship yet, but when they meet, they like are fascinated by each other, and they just think they're both super cool. And so there's this scene, which I love, there's this scene it's towards the end of the first part of the Get Down, where he goes to this like gay club kind of place, and there's a bunch of drag queens, and it's like really dope and whatever. And he goes there to take his sister's record over to the DJ so that they can play it, so that it can become popular. And so basically he has this like moment with Thor, and they kiss, and it's really cute. And Christina Aguilera's Telepathy is playing. It's just a really like fascinating and beautiful moment. And also another really cool moment is towards the end of the second part, where Jaden is hanging out with Thor, Dizzy is hanging out with Thor, and they're like in Thor's like little like loft, like place that he lives, and they're like painting, but they're painting like the wall, but they're also like painting each other, and it's like this really cool like dichotomy. And then Jaden starts like dancing really like artful, and it's like really like cool. I really love that part, and I just really love Jaden Smith. He's an indigo, and so I really love Jaden Smith. But that has to be one of my favorite roles that he's ever been in, and he's only been in a few, but this has to be one of my favorites. So shout out to you, Jaden Smith. But I also really love the guy who plays Ezekiel. So his name is Justice Smith, and he's really cute. Like, I really like him as an actor. He's really cute in the show, and I really think he's just really cute. But he was also in this other movie called Paper Towns, which is boring. Don't watch it. But he was like the black kid in that show, a movie. So that's, I think, where I noticed him from. So yeah, like I said, I definitely recommend this to especially my generation, the millennials, who might not know a lot about their hip hop history. So there's this scene, and it deals with Mylene, and basically she came from the church, right? And she's not really a church girl, but she came from the church. She came from humble beginnings. And so her dad is very, like, religious. And so she gets to this record contract with her and her friends. And at first she's doing this, like, disco church music type thing. And her dad's really happy and all this stuff, and it gets a lot of publicity for the church. But after a while, the record company kind of gets, like, tired of it, and so they, like, start to renege on stuff they said and try to start, like, you know, falling back and, like, not really supporting her. So she one day just barges into their office and is like, what's going on? Why aren't you not supporting me? And basically they say, well, you know, we're kind of done with this whole churchy thing, and there's this other role we want you to take, but we're not sure you're gonna take it because you're this church girl, and it's not good for your image, and blah blah blue. But she's like, I'll do anything. And basically what they want her to do is basically sing this, like, raunchy song about, you know, sex. Like, go figure. But basically it's out of her comfort zone, but she does it anyways. And one of her friends, Yolanda, who is the sister of the Kipling brothers, she kind of backs out, and, you know, the other friend, Regina, goes through with it with her, and it's just like this whole thing. After it, some tragic things happen, right? And so, to me, that whole storyline is basically confirming something that is in the music industry and has been in the music industry for, like, time immemorial, since record companies have become a thing. Selling your soul to become famous. And that is what they always want you to do. Before this, Mylene was this church girl who was going to church with her dad, singing his church music, and living out her dreams. That's something that's actually a really good thing. But you take it to a whole nother level and make her into this, like, sex kitten, and basically make her do something that she probably would never have done otherwise. And because of it, some bad consequences end up happening. Now, in the end, she actually gets what she wants and is able to be in this movie that she wanted to be in, because she stands her ground and is able to get what she wants from the record company. But a lot of stars are not that fortunate, and a lot of stars do get pimped out that way, where they're this innocent, you know, people, these innocent girls, and they just want to make music, and then the next minute, you know, they're being pimped out and are putting out these, you know, wild music videos and these wild songs that are completely different than what they were putting out before, or completely different from who they were before, and kind of compromises them. But sometimes they're willing to go through with it, and that was what Mylene was willing to do. And afterwards, she feels bad about it because she's like, is this my fault? Because I sold my soul to, you know, because her, you know, her dad was always like, disco's devil music, and don't do this, that, and the third. And after some things happen with him, she feels bad and starts to think that maybe she sold her soul to make this music and do this, what she wanted to do. And it was really a testament to the power of the show, showing that even from the 70s, that this is going on then and it's still going on today, and it's really sad. But I know this is supposed to be a show about hip-hop, but to be honest, and I love hip-hop, but to be honest, this show kind of muddles it with the storylines of Ezekiel and Mylene's love thing, and with Shaolin and the drug stuff and various other situations going on, that it gets muddled, and sometimes you can't really see the hip-hop in the show. Now, there are some episodes that were really dope and really bring a lot of the hip-hop culture into the show. One episode is when Grandmaster meets Ezekiel and his friends, and he starts to teach them about the purple crayon. And the purple crayon basically means the get down. So what the get down actually is you have a record, or you have two, because you have a turntable, and you have two records on the turntable. And basically, you play the record, and you try to find the best part of the record, which is basically the drum beats, or if it's a jazz record, you know, the more instrumental, like funky parts, or whatever, depending on what type of music it is. You try to find that, like, sweet spot. And when you find it, you mark it off with a crayon. And then you basically do this kind of like 6-turn type of thing. I was watching it on that Hot 97 video that I told you about, where he does like, he shows you that technique, which I was confused, but hey. And it's really cool, and they teach you sort of it in the show and about how to find the actual get down. And so it's basically that break part, and then they just basically loop it, and then they try to like keep it going as the other record spins, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and that's basically how it works. And then, you know, the scratching comes in and everything. And so Grandmaster Flash teaches, you know, Shaolin Fantastic and Ezekiel and everybody about this technique, and they figure it out, and then they become the Get Down Brothers, and it's really cool. That part of it I really liked. That was a good episode. Another episode that I thought was good was towards the end of the whole series. During the last episode, they have this, so basically Fat Annie, who is this, like I said, this like mobster, gangster mother who owns Les Inferno, which is this disco club, and her son Cadillac, who's in love with disco. And so basically they own this place, and so basically Fat Annie finds out about this hip hop thing, right? This Get Down thing. And she has the Get Down Brothers and DJ Shaolin Fantastic do a show at Les Inferno one night, and she finds out about this and like gets really excited. She offers Fantastic a record contract to sign to her record label and do a commercial Get Down record. And he's like, how am I going to do that when we sample from other people's records? We're going to get sued. And she's like, I'll figure it out. But basically when they sign the contracts, they're signing over their life. And they're basically signing over that they will become basically her slaves to push her drugs. And it's crazy. So Ezekiel's not down for it, of course. And basically what ends up happening, so Ra, who is one of the Kipling brothers, he ends up coming up with this great idea where he had visited the Zulu Nation, right? African Bada comes into the second part of the series. And he goes and visits the Zulu Nation with this he meets this beautiful queen from the Zulu Nation who teaches him about the unity and everything going on with the Zulu Nation. So he's like, bet, this is how we can get out of Fat Annie's contracts and stuff. So he's like, let's bring all of the competing DJs and wordsmiths and everybody together, and from Boombada to Kaz to Flash, and let's bring them together and let's bring it for unity. That basically Fat Annie cannot commercialize our thing because she wants to put a band instead of DJs, because she's like, that's how we'll take care of the copyright thing. And they're like, nah, DJs are an integral part of hip hop. You're not gonna take that away. And so basically at the end of the very last episode, towards the end, they come together as one united front for hip hop. But it wasn't hip hop yet, but hip hop. One united front for hip hop, and they rally together to basically save their genre of music that was coming up and being birthed out of the streets. And it was a beautiful, beautiful little clip that I love. They're on the roof and they're just getting down, like all the different crews are getting down. The Get Down Brothers, the Notorious 3, you know, the people from the Zulu Nation. They have some female MCs up there. I'm like, yes, sisters. I'm like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. Unity for hip hop all day, right? I was living for it. I was so living for it. But yeah, I do like to Get Down. I think it's a really good, it reminds me of a Bronx Tale when it comes to Mylene and Zeke's like love story. It reminds me of a Bronx Tale, which I love. That's a good movie. Go check it out. But yeah, I do think it was a good show. I definitely think that millennials need to go check it out, learn their hip hop history, because if you're gonna call yourself a hip hop head, you need to know your history. Even if you're trying to advance the culture and not really, you know, do what the old heads did, you still need to know your history. That's an important part of hip hop. And that, I like the fact that they made this, because this part of hip hop is not talked about enough. and is not documented enough, like the way that like rock and roll is. And so we really need that, and so I'm glad that the Get Down was made. So the last thing I want to talk about before I end this review-ish thing is the music. So the soundtrack to the show might be the best part of the whole show. I love it. It's fire. It's good. It's great. It's amazing. I do, you know, like if the Get Down brothers had made music in 2016, 2017, and they're actually a group during this time period, but made music from the 70s, oh, I would be all over it. All over it. It was so good. I am a big old school hip hop fan, so it was speaking to my love and my heart. I love it. I love the track with Jaden Smith and Rory. That's such a good song. Such a good classic. I love it. And I also love Rory and Jaden Smith. They're Indigos. Love them. They're dope. I also love the song Telepathy by Christina Aguilera. That was such a good bop. That was such a good bop. And that drag queen that was lip syncing to it, she lip synced for her life. RuPaul, yes, honey. That was so good. And then I also love the Sam Dewey cover. So the Sam Dewey cover of an Aaron Neville song called Using Me is so good. So good. It gives me life. I love it. It's so good. And I just love that song in general because I've loved it since I was a kid. I didn't understand it back then, but when they were playing it during the show and just in general since I've been an adult, I understand it better now. But man, that's a good song. And I also love Cadillac by Miguel, but I also love Have You Heard, I think is what the song is called, by Miguel. That's during that scene when Jaden Smith and Thor are like painting on each other. But we can't like download it or anything. It's not on Spotify, so I'm sad because it's a really good song, but oh well. Miguel's dope, so yeah. And yeah, I mean, all the songs that Nas does as a grown-up Ezekiel is really, really fire, of course, because it's Nas. And yeah, I just love the soundtrack in general. The girl who plays Mylene Cruz has such a beautiful voice, like an amazing singing voice. It's so good. So basically that was my review of the Get Down in a nutshell. If you want to find out more on how I felt about the story, the plot lines, the characters, the actors, the music, the soundtrack, everything, go to my blog, turtlegirl.blog, where I wrote an in-depth review of the show and what I thought about it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you're a fan of hip-hop, go watch this show. It's dope. And if you don't know your hip-hop history, go watch this show. And comment down below your favorite hip-hop artist. I told you some of mine. A Tribe Called Quest, Lauryn Hill, the Fugees, you know, I get it. Missy Elliott, Lupe Fiasco, Chance the Rapper, Joey Badass, J. Cole, you know, MC Lyte, Queen Latifah, the list goes on and on and on. I'm a hip-hop head. I love hip-hop. So if you love hip-hop too, comment down below your favorite hip-hop artist. And until next time, beautiful people, a hip hop that don't stop, rocking to the bang bang boogie to bang bang the boogie to the bang to the boogie to beat. Till next time, beautiful indigos and starseeds and hip hop heads, peace and blessings. Hip hop all day.
I'm fly Dizzy D, all the ladies love me. The fellas know I'm now alone. So it started with a flash said, next up, Rob, bless the floor.
I said they call me King Rock. Hit a fanfare when I enter the cypher. Fly girls follow me like I'm the pipe. Pop up